Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Kaye Monk-Morgan, and I have the pleasure of serving as a director of the Upward Bound Math Science program at Wichita State University, and I'm chair-elect for the Council for Opportunity in Education. So I'm an Upward Bound director, so I'm going to bring that enthusiasm to this group, and I'm going to need you guys to get on board, yes? Yes. We may or may not do that here in Congress, but our program just ended on Friday, and I've not yet switched gears. I do want to bring to your attention that there are snacks in the room. If you've not availed yourself to those, please do so, so that you have something to get you through the activity we have this afternoon. I'm pleased to welcome you to this Congressional Trio Caucus briefing. Educational Opportunity Centers, Engines of Economic Mobility. This afternoon, we will explore the challenges facing adult learners who turn to education as a means to improve their economic circumstances, and how TRIO's Educational Opportunity Centers, or EOCs as we call them, help address these needs. Allow me to introduce this afternoon's panel. First, we will hear from Jeff Carter. Jeff is a senior policy advisor and past president of the National Coalition for Literacy, as well as the former executive director of the National Council of State Directors of Adult Education and the National Adult Education Professional Development Consortium. After which, we will hear from Ms. Alfie Muncie, an alumni of the Upward Bound program, who now serves as the director of the Educational Opportunity Center at Midlands Technical College in Columbia, South Carolina. Then we'll hear from Mr. Brent Holley, an alumnus of the Educational Opportunity Center at Marshall University, who now serves as a machinist at Tri-State Coding and Machine in Salt Rock, West Virginia. And we will close out this afternoon with hearing from Darryl Carrington, an alumnus of the Educational Opportunity Center at Wichita State University, who now serves as a community liaison for the university's Public Policy and Management Center. Let's welcome our panelists. Before we begin listening to the comments of our panelists, I would like to take a moment to recognize any of our congressional guests that might be in the room. And I don't think I recognize anyone just of yet, but be alerted that if indeed we do have representatives or Congress folks that have an opportunity to stop by, we'll briefly interrupt our program in order to give the podium to them to share their comments with us. At this time, I think we're going to ask Jeff to come to the podium to kick off this afternoon's discussion.
I have to be careful. There's lots of wires here. I don't want to trip. Well, thank you. And thank you for inviting, thanks to COE for inviting me to speak today. You know, I worked in adult education for almost 20 years. I'm not currently employed in adult education, so I was excited. I still work with the National Coalition for Literacy as a volunteer, but I was excited for this opportunity because it gives me a chance to talk about something I still really, really love, which is I just love adult learners and I love adult education. And so I want to start today with just a couple of quick stories about some adult learners that I know to kind of put this discussion into context. One of my sort of a typical story. I have two actually. This woman's name, not a real name, is Teresa. When she was a teenager, you know, a lot of people like this, had to drop out of school to help with the family. In this case, she had to help raise her grandmother, raise her siblings. Grew up and then got married, moved to New York, and where she raised her own children and worked for a bookbinding company. But then that company went out of business, and she was unable to find work because she didn't have a high school diploma. Another fellow I met once out in Arizona, actually, Miguel, worked for 23 years as an X-ray technician in California. Didn't need a high school diploma when he got the job, but once he moved to Arizona, he wasn't able to find work in this field because he didn't have a high school diploma. For many adult learners, that's the issue. It's about getting that high school diploma that for one reason or another they didn't have a chance to get. But for many students that are enrolled in adult education, it can be other issues as well. So often they lack basic foundational skills in literacy and math. In fact, over 30 million adults in the U.S. do not have a high school diploma. That's roughly 1 in 10 adults. And 1 in 6 adults in this country need to improve their basic literacy and math skills. and nearly 30% of adults with household incomes at or below the poverty line do not have a high school credential. Now, adult learners don't fit into any particular mold. Some are young, some are old, US born, some are immigrants. They're almost always working, in my experience, often more than one job. They contribute to their communities. Most that I meet are parents. Many have struggled and continue to struggle with issues like poverty, hunger, health challenges, and other issues. Now, we have adult education programs in this country and adult schools that serve these learners. The largest federal funding source for adult education is Title II, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. How many people have heard of it? Yes. Adult education is funded through Title II of WIOA. And in the WIOA world, many learners I know are part of what is referred to as the working poor. Almost 2/3 of adults with low academic skills, in fact, are employed, but they earn low wages and lack the credentials that they need or face other barriers to enrolling in post-secondary. Now, increasingly, those of you who know about WIOA, the adult education system is focused on transitioning these adults to post-secondary education or job training, in many cases helping adults earn post-secondary credits as they earn their high school diploma. All of this, I think, positions EOCs to work even more closely with adult education going forward. I was speaking to a new colleague, a new friend in Maine, actually, last night, and she was telling me that about 70% of the people that she works with at her EOC in Maine, which is a statewide EOC, about 70% she refers to adult education, either for basic skills or to shore up a particular skill. I'm going to guess a lot of that is math, that they need in order to move on to the next step. Unfortunately, the federally funded adult education system serves only about 1.7 million adults annually. Remember earlier I was using numbers like 30 million adults without a diploma and 1 in 6 lacking basic skills. So clearly we need more support for adult education. That's not what I'm here necessarily to talk about today. But we have another problem, even those we're able to reach and enroll in our system, and this is where I think the connection to EOCs is really critical. Adult learners face many barriers. Many have no experience navigating higher education. Many have no experience navigating financial aid. They may lack support networks. They may work long and often unpredictable hours. They have childcare needs. And this last one I encounter more than anything else. They may not be aware of what their educational and career options are in their communities. Adult education programs are not always equipped to provide these services to address these challenges. It's interesting, so I mentioned the story earlier, this fellow, Miguel. He's a student. I was talking to the EOC director at that program at Pima Community College, who used to run an adult education program there, and he was saying now that he's running the EOC, he can provide all these services to these adult learners that he wasn't able to do with the funding he had in adult education. So with that said, you're going to hear some great stories, some great EOC success stories today, and I'm happy to take any of your questions about adult learning or adult education, but I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of our panel. Thank you.
Thank you.
We certainly want to thank Jeff for his comments and sharing his expertise on the issue of adult education and how that ties to educational opportunity centers. At this time, we'll hear from Ms. Mincy.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
What does a first-generation college student look like? Are they black? Are they white? Are they Hispanic? Are they short? Are they tall? Well, you're looking at a first-generation college student. Out of a family of 5 children, TRIO has impacted my entire family. All of my siblings, except for one, participated in a TRIO program. All of them have graduated from college. UNC Charlotte is where I'm an alum. Winthrop University and the University of South Carolina. All are now graduated and are gainfully employed. TRIO gave my family the opportunity to discover the people they were destined to be. That's why TRIO programs like my program, MTC, Midlands Technical College Educational Opportunity Center, where I'm a director, are the engines to move students towards economic mobility and stability. Currently, as the EOC director at Midlands Technical College in Columbia, South Carolina, we serve 2 counties in the Midlands area, and our staff is a change agent and an advocate in the community to help first generation, which means neither their mother nor father graduated from a 4-year institution, and help low-income adult students gain access to education and to training. My EOC staff are the conductors that help students 19 years of age or older recognize their potential to seek post-secondary education or vocational or technical training. Just to tell you a little bit more about my program, the Midlands area in Columbia, South Carolina is the heart of South Carolina. We consist of 3 counties, Richland, Lexington, and Fairfield counties. As the heart of South Carolina, it should be a center of opportunity. But many low-income, first-generation students are not prepared to enter higher education or vocational training programs due to the lack of information on college admissions processes, as well as a lack of exposure. And exposure is very important that TRIO provides to post-secondary education and financial aid opportunities. The Midlands Technical College Education Opportunity Center project serves primarily Fairfield and Lexington counties. These are impoverished rural areas of South Carolina characterized by low achievement and minimal opportunity. Compared to Fairfield, Lexington County at first glance seems to be a portrait of the American dream. Unfortunately, this appearance is not as a mirage. Since the county has many isolated pockets in low expectations and in hope, a high number of low-income families, low participation in secondary high school diploma programs, and lack of financial aid resources, and low educational attainment of beyond high school. Poverty is the strongest indicator of need for MTC or EOC programs. And the poverty levels in our target area indicates a need for an MTC or EOC project. Let me tell you about my staff. My program has 3.5 staff, and I mean half, because we do not have all full-time staff. And the minimum budget allows us to serve, I'm gonna give you a number, 1,000 students at $230 per participant. Our staff goes out to at least 10 outreach sites throughout the school year to provide services to adult students. We host FAFSAs after 5, which is the free application for federal student aid, and host FAFSA workshops for students to complete their FAFSA applications. Due to some of our outreach sites being in rural areas, some students literally may have to walk to their appointment to meet with us. We work with students at adult education centers who have dropped out of high school and are now trying to obtain their high school diploma or their GED. We provide services to pre-release offenders in the Department of Corrections to help them learn about financial aid, job training programs, and post-secondary education. My program also refers to students to quick jobs at Midlands Technical College and continuing educational vocational training programs. We receive referrals from the Department of Social Services, Department of Corrections, and workforce centers. Through our services, we are able to connect the dots for adult learners to resources to overcome poverty. And I said that was the #1 indicator for students. And we help them face the challenges ahead. We also work with veterans and their families in reference to accessing post-secondary education. You may ask, how are we so successful and how do we do so much with so little? We have referrals and collaborative partnerships with community agencies, post-secondary institutions, and other TRIO programs and workforce centers. Just to wrap it up, I want to give you a couple success stories. One of them I'd like to tell you about is Christy. Christy is a 30-plus-year-old participant of the EOC program at Midlands Tech. Christy actually enrolled at an adult ed program because she saw a sign on the side of the road advertising, "Get your GED." Christy decided that that was the sign she needed and was tired of dead-end jobs. At that time, Christy was working painting apartment complexes, and she knew she needed to get her GED to find better employment. To be honest, Christy was not even thinking about going to college until she met me. Christy said EOC made the process of going to college sound so easy, and it may sound easy, but with the help of the EOC program, she said, I couldn't say no to you, Miss Alfie. EOC, it's hard to refuse me. Okay. EOC helped Christy walk through all the steps to applying to college. Financial aid, choosing a major, and we referred her to several campus programs. Currently, Christy's major is Administrative Office Technology, and she'll be graduating in the fall of 2018. Christy hopes that she can attain her AOT degree, and she told me, Ms. Alfie, I possibly want to like to work with you as an administrative assistant. Also, one more student I would like to share with you is Malik. Malik became a participant of the Education Opportunity Center in January of 2014 after graduating from high school. We assisted him with applying for college and financial aid and cost planning. He had never known his biological father and had been primarily raised by his grandmother, as his mother was frequently incarcerated in and out of jail. The following year his mother was released, we were unable to locate her. Our office assisted him with the lengthy documentation of getting a dependency override. If he is unable to provide parental information, you have to go through paperwork, notary paperwork in order to petition to the financial aid office to receive financial aid. Since we were able to help Malik get that, and since then, overcoming these hurdles, Malik has continued to persist in college at Milton's Technical College, where he is pursuing his degree in computer technology, and he has about 11 classes left before completing his degree. Without MTC or EOC programs, an abundance of students in our county wouldn't find their way to success. Doors would not have opened to those that came from disadvantaged backgrounds. Do you believe everybody deserves an education? Okay. And everybody deserves an opportunity. Okay. Well, I do too. Because you're looking at a success story right in front of you. I help students every day believe that everybody deserves an education. My EOC program believes no matter what your identities are, you deserve a well-rounded education that can lead to your success. Please continue to support the Education Opportunity Center. Thank you to COE for this opportunity to show my passion and my love for TRIO programs. Thank you.
Wow, we want to thank Ms. Mincy, of course, for sharing the overview from a director standpoint and talking about the success of her students. We'll now have Mr. Holly come forward and share his experience as well.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'd just like to take a few moments to give you a small background of myself and a personal experience of EOC. I went to a small rural high school in West Virginia. I wasn't a straight A student, I was just your average student. Neither of my parents went to college, so they did not have the knowledge or the financial ability to help me attend a four-year college. So through a friend, I heard of called the National Institute of Technology. This man came to my house. We talked about what it would take to go to the school, and so I enrolled. This was a for-profit organization type school, so I didn't get any financial aid. I only had student loans. So after graduation from this program, I really couldn't find a job with that degree. So I found a job called Century Aluminum in Ravenswood, West Virginia. I had to drive an hour each way, The pay was awesome. So I stayed for almost 19 years. There I was able to pay off my student loans. We built a house, I got married, started a family. Everything was going good. And in February of '09, the plant closed. So this not only impacted me personally, but the entire community of Ravenswood. The plant employed roughly like 700 people, and those 700 people helped keep alive other businesses in the area. It was the economic impact was devastating, and they still haven't really recovered. So upon this, the plant closing, my first thought was, what am I going to do? Here I am, I have no other skills, I'm 39 years old, and I have a family now I have to support. So, and jobs in this area were hard to come by. And the ones that were available were much less paid than what I was used to. So, through a friend, fortunately, I was connected to the director of the Educational Opportunity Center at Marshall University. Within 2 weeks of losing my job, I was enrolled in a college course. It's basically just to get refamiliarized with the college atmosphere, basically. So, the EOC staff helped me complete all my financial aid forms. They worked with the workforce, they got me money to pay for my education. And through that workforce money and unemployment that I received, I was able to support my family, go to school full time, and I graduated with no debt at all. So that was awesome. So I graduated with a degree in applied science in machine technology in August of 2011. And I don't think this would have been possible without the EOC program. They followed up with me repeatedly, checked on my progress, they connected me with tutoring when I needed it, and just the encouragement and build-up of confidence. I feel that they played a vital part in my quest to permanent and gainful employment. So, within 2 months after graduating, I had a full-time job. Finding employment in West Virginia is very difficult. And I found this job, and I've been employed for 6 years, and currently employed. While I earn less money than what I did at the aluminum plant, I have a day shift job, which allows me to be a key part in my son's life. EOC has made it possible for me to have this job, and I'm blessed not only to have more time with my son now, but also serve as a role model for education, and that education can change your life. So, thank you very much.
Our final speaker this afternoon will be Darryl Carrington from Wichita State. Darryl?
Good afternoon. Thanks for being here to hear these wonderful stories, and I hope mine measure up to all these great real-life stories. So for 2 years, as a husband and a father, at the time of one, so we had a family of 3. For 2 years, we lived on an $11,000 a year stipend that I received as a volunteer for the National Corporation of Corporation of National Service. That's AmeriCorps. AmeriCorps, you don't know, for those of you who don't know about AmeriCorps, AmeriCorps is unlike the Peace Corps. AmeriCorps responds to trauma that happens within the borders of the United States. Peace Corps, members of the Peace Corps respond to trauma that happens around the world. My spouse, Cassandra, and myself lived in Los Angeles, and we decided to relocate and move to Charleston, South Carolina. At the time, Los Angeles was feeling somewhat hostile for us. We've gone through the Rodney King incidents and O.J. Simpson, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't know if you all remember what Enron Corporation. I mean, we were just, Los Angeles had lost its romantic appeal. So we decided to move back to my birthplace, which was Charleston, South Carolina. Midway is Wichita, Kansas. And so we were traveling, driving across country, and it happened to be our anniversary. So we decided to stop because my wife's tummy was out to here. So we decided to stop and see if we could get an ultrasound to find out the sex of our child. That was going to be the gift for us, for our anniversary. And so we did that, but we found out right away that my wife actually had a tumor, and we needed emergency surgery right away, which we got, and it was wonderful health care in the Midwest. But that caused us to pause, and in that pause point, I found a local church who needed someone to mentor kids in the neighborhood. It was a difficult neighborhood. And so since I had the time, I acquiesced, and so I became a member of AmeriCorps. $11,000 a year, which was tough to manage, but we did. And after completing about 2,000 hours, we were able to receive what we call an education award, which was $10,000. I'm at 50 at that point, and at 50 years of age, I wasn't sure how to leverage that $10,000. Well, how do I maximize that scholarship? So fortunately for me, I was directed to the Educational Opportunity Center, and they answered all the questions that I had. Questions like, how to enroll. How do you do that? And, what school? What school would they direct me to? And, how do I supplement this $10,000? Because it takes more than $10,000 to complete a degree program. So again, at age 50, and Jeff mentioned, some of the returning adult learners are young and old. And so at age 50, I entered college for the second time. Prior to that, about 35 years prior, I was in school, but I wasn't a successful student. However, I got a second chance, and everyone likes a second chance, come back, which I took full advantage of. I want to tell you that the TRIO program had a capacity to answer all my questions, and what I had not realized, though, was that it had an exponential effect. It wasn't just me that was realizing my investment, but my entire family. In fact, when my wife recovered, and she has recovered fully, she also took advantage of the Educational Opportunity Center and actually graduated before I did. Because I was working full-time and I had to take classes, incremental classes. In fact, I will graduate on my 60th birthday, which is in the spring of 2018, with a degree in health management and community development. And with that, well, even before I earned the degree, I served, as Kaye mentioned, I served as a community liaison and I build bridges between the academic community and the world that surrounds it. And so we're very productive at home. My wife was also a director of a mentoring program, the one that I actually began this process in. Now she's the director and doing a much better job than I did. But what I really want to celebrate with you is that when we started this process, we had a 9-year-old son who is now 18. And he too had access to knowledge to direct him to the TRIO Upward Bound Math Science program, which he is an alum from, and he's about to enter into his academic career as an aerospace engineering student. And I couldn't ask for a better scenario of events. And so I want to tell you, it's been my experience that TRIO works. And I want to thank all of those who are part of developing this program, sustaining this program, not only for my family, but for families and generations to come. And so I look forward to your engagement and your questions after this session, and I thank you for being here. Take care.
Certainly want to thank our panelists for sharing their perspectives and in some cases their personal stories of success and overcoming, taking advantage of the federal TRIO programs and educational opportunity centers. Each of our panelists has agreed to answer questions that you might have. And so at this point, if you will share your question with me, I'll repeat it to make sure that everybody heard it, and we'll get some answers for you. How about that? Yes, ma'am.
Hi. I'm a part of the Donald M. Payne International Development Program, so happy to see adult education being talked about. I'm going to be an education officer in 2 years, So thank you all for being here. A quick question. Jeff mentioned a little bit about immigrant education, and I know we have a lot of immigrants coming to the United States, and I was an ESL teacher for 3 years, so I knew and I saw that language barriers often impact their ability to learn, and you also have people coming to the United States with previous backgrounds in law or nurses and just any number of things, but language barriers are kind of apprehending them from moving forward in the United States. Does TRIO or do any of you guys' programs or experiences kind of address language barriers in that education, or kind of how do you see that moving forward when that is such a big deterrent or kind of stopping point in you pursuing finishing your GED, finishing your high school degree, or moving on to a post-secondary degree?
The question
You're going to repeat the question? Yeah.
live stream relates to adult education and immigrant populations, particularly as it relates to language barriers and being able to succeed in matriculation to post-secondary.
I believe it is a primary barrier. At a lot of the adult ed centers, they do have English as a second language, and the first priority, most of the TRIO programs, let me make sure I clarify the Education Opportunity Center, because all of our programs are outreach programs. When we go out to the adult ed centers, we communicate with the ESL students and the instructors. I think their first priority at that time is to get the language part down. And then we come in and talk about the opportunities for education, because one, they're just coming to the United States. What is the admissions process to get into school if they want to continue their education? So we try to be that bridge of communication. Yes, it can be challenging, explaining some of the information and processes to them. But I think at some point they're attentive and say, I really want to go to the next step, especially if their degree or whatever is not recognized. Or their credits, and that's a major thing that are not recognized in the United States, and they have to try to get articulation agreements and all those. And we really try to explain to them it may be starting over, but they're going to have a good start and a good support system through the EOC office.
Angie, I know you are an EOC director as well.
Well, I'm actually a talent director, but I've written EOC proposals. And we have an EOC program on our campus, and that is something we're seeing an increase of the Hispanic population in our area. And as a result of that, that is something that, certainly our EOC programs are being very proactive in making sure that literature may be, in, certain languages to help meet the needs of the population and so forth. So that's definitely an awareness in terms of programs wanting to make sure that that language barrier is addressed and help those individuals get in school.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I just add to that? I'm Pam Guavier, EOC Director from Massachusetts, and we work with a number of immigrants as well. In fact, I think probably the majority of our clients coming in now are immigrants looking for some kind of educational program that will make them self-sufficient and really acclimate them to our way of life. And we find that the ESL programs are critical. They quite often work very closely with us. We're almost a conduit into their programs. But the other piece too is, as you addressed, Alfie, is when these individuals are coming to this country with some skills and some education, and they're very frustrated because they have to start over or they have to, take up a whole new career perhaps. One of the things that we've been able to do is to work closely with some of the accrediting bodies to see if we can't, jump through a couple of those hurdles a little bit more easily for them, because they are well educated in some cases, but otherwise they would be starting at the bottom of the ladder in terms of a career. So immigrants are a big part of the workforce plan, I think, for the whole country, and EOCs really play, I think, a very vital role in making sure that they're incorporated into what we're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you, Pamela, for adding that information.
Just to add to that point, I think about a year ago, I remember attending an event at the White House, actually, where there were a bunch of programs that had come together that were doing that sort of thing. They were working with immigrant populations that were well educated. They may have had language issues, but so they weren't able, because of the language barrier, or because of a credentialing issue, the credential not being recognized here, weren't able to actually work in the field that they worked in back home. And there's some really interesting, afterwards I'll see if I can dig up, there's a really interesting list of programs that do that. And then the second thing I wanted to say just about adult education in general, the federal system serves quite a lot of our students are English language learners in the federal system, well over half. So that's a big part of our work.
Wonderful. Thank you for your question. Are there other questions that relate to educational opportunity centers or even TRIO in general? Yes, sir.
So the Trump administration is really put a push on apprenticeships and making sure being able to move to the workforce. Does TRIO see kind of a way to work with the administration and see if these centers can be used to kind of go hand in hand with the administration's goals? I know a lot of doing more Department of Labor instead of Department of Education, but does TRIO or any other centers see a future possibly making that goal a reality?
I'll answer. We see that a lot at Wichita State. Our institution has actually partnered with and has a pathways program called Chakra Pathway, working with the Wichita Area Technical College. And so the goal isn't, particularly for EOC programs, are not necessarily that you get a 4-year baccalaureate degree. It's that you attend a post-secondary institution and achieve a credential of some sort. The community that Darryl and I both represent is heavily influenced by manufacturing. Most of it aerospace or aircraft types of manufacturing. And we're seeing an aging workforce and need to replenish. And so if you go to Spirit Aerosystems or Boeing or any number of the big wig people in our community, they would argue that that's first and foremost. And our institution as a university that hosts TRIO programs is very interested in making sure that we're helping to provide access to folks to feed the economic development in our communities and workforce placement. Big deal.
And I like to say apprenticeships are a wonderful opportunity, but still at the very beginning, you have to look at the level, number one, exposure. How do we expose these individuals to those opportunities, even though employers, and I understand about the apprenticeship program, is to give incentives to employers, but where are these people? And I think with the EOC, we are an outreach program. We're in the streets. beating the pavement. And so I think by us providing the opportunity to say we know about these apprenticeship programs, but first you need to get your high school diploma or you need to get your GED. And then after that, if there's an opportunity for them to get some type of credential or some type of certification, then that's where the employer could come in. I'll pay for you to go to school while you're working for me. And I think having someone that's in the streets, because we're doing this every day, folks. Thousands of students, thousands of EOC, hundreds of EOC, not thousands, because it's not thousands of EOC programs. Hundreds of EOC programs are across this country trying to bridge that gap to help adult learners go to work. Because we'll see a lot of people, probably your parents' ages or your ages, that come to our office. I lost my job. Or my job closed down, and all I have is a high school diploma. Well, these are some opportunities. So I think even with businesses collaborating with post-secondary institutions, and especially institutions that have an EOC program, so our program can help bridge that gap and working together.
The notion of stackable credentials is huge in post-secondary at this point. And so even if it's a matter of getting you an apprenticeship that will get you a job that gives you a prevailing wage, so that you can work your way through post-secondary if you decide to go on for a bachelor's degree or, heaven help, a PhD or advanced degree of some sort. Those are all goals that are expressed through TRIO and certainly in line with the President's goals. Are there other questions that you all might have? Yes, ma'am.
I had a question about larger TRIO programs, so it's fine if there's not an answer to this, but there was kind of news lately about the upward bound applications that were denied for formatting errors, and that there was news that those would be reviewed, but there was also a lot of applications denied from the talent search program also for formatting errors, and I was wondering if anyone knew updates on the status of those or how the process of review is going.
At that point, I might yield.
Actually, I almost want to turn it over to Ron.
Not to put you on.
Yeah, if you want.
Oh, yeah.
Please, yeah.
I can answer that if that's necessary. So I didn't deal with down stuff, so for Whitford, so we actually were able to get those revisited, which is great. It's a bipartisan effort. Great members, 36 members on the House side, 25 senators. So we were able to get for formatting, unfortunately not from budget reasons, and West Virginia State, University of Los Fairbanks, there's a lot of universities that were just off by $2 and they were denied because of rounding error, which is ridiculous. So we worked on some legislation to address this issue. The Secretary said it will never happen again. She did have an internal memo saying this kind of strict scrutiny wouldn't happen. I haven't heard too much about the talent search stuff. It's a little smaller pool. I'm more happy to talk with you or your office about it. But that's something that is a very bipartisan idea. Saying, in the case for our school, Wittenberg University, it was a double space there on one spot where it was 1.5 space on the tile chart instead of double space, and they denied the application outright. Didn't even review it. And so it doesn't mean you need a Republican or a Democrat to say that's screwed up. And so the idea is that we can all come together and make sure and say, okay, well, let's fix this. This is ridiculous. The Secretary has said that she's so happy to change it. We'll work with that one. But we're working to make sure that, again, this isn't happening again. This is a recurrent issue. This goes back to many administrations. And so anything we can do to make sure that these schools, we just do a lot of very good, going back 50 years plus, and do that. And something we're always down for. So if you want to reach out to me, I know about it.
There we go. I will tell you that you are now like a hero. There's a meme out there with your picture on it. I'll send it to you. Because oftentimes, those of us that are on the ground really need the support and the help of those of you in this room to make sure that the work that we're doing is protected. I happen to have an Upward Bound program grant who's in the cycle right now. We'll hear next week about funding. You best believe I've gone through and edited every line of that thing thinking, oh my God, that could happen to me. And no one wants to be in a position to look your 74 young people in the face and say, I messed up because I didn't indent in the right place, and now you don't have a program, and now your staff don't have a job. So certainly want to yet again continue to thank you and your representative, the Congress, for your support on that very particular issue. Yeah, very helpful. Yeah, I'll send you the meme. You got a cape on and everything. Are there any other questions that we might be able to help with you with or provide answers? Yes, ma'am.
When you specifically counsel students, whether adult, whether middle schoolers, high schoolers, can you talk about some of the resources that you give them for specific two-year colleges, such as community colleges, career tech, anything like that?
It really, I'll give it a shot, and then we'll have some of our other staff in the room. It really kind of depends on the goals and objectives of that particular student. In most cases, they don't have a goal or an objective. They just know that I want to go to college because that's what you do to get rich. So you start there. That you're not going to get rich, but you will be able to pay your mortgage. That is, that's what we're working for. And so it really kind of depends on what what kind of aptitudes they have, right? And GPA, ACT scores, what kind of schools we can get you in, and what type of majors are available at those particular institutions. We have lots of assessments that we do with our students to determine whether you are a kinesthetic learner or an physical learner, what types of things that they want to do. One of the things that I think is fascinating about TRIO program is that while we're housed on university campuses, we are expressly prohibited for recruiting for those institutions. So the students don't necessarily matriculate to the campus on which we are housed. I've got 12 or 17 students who graduated this year, and we've gone to 17 different schools all over the place. And so I think the counseling is very unique and individualized based on that particular student's needs. If you want, in our community, if you want to be an aerospace engineer, and you can demonstrate the aptitude for that, and sometimes even if you can't, but we're going to go out on a limb, we'll get you into aerospace. But sometimes we'll say, well, let's get a credential in machinist or welding, and that will give you a job until you can do these other types of things. So I don't know that there's a one answer on how you provide that type of feedback to a student. I think it really depends on the individual student, which is why it's important to have staff that are really well educated about the educational opportunities in your community. And what resources are available. The other thing I think is really unique, particularly about our community, is that if I don't know, I can call Angie. Mm-hmm. If Angie, I've got a kid who wants to go to school in West Virginia now, and I'm like, I don't know why West Virginia? Football. He wants to go to West Virginia. Well, I've got a friend in West Virginia, so let me give her a call and see if that's something that we can work out for you. And then I send her, his DNA sample and a lock of his hair, and I'm leaving my baby on your campus, so make sure that he graduates type of deal. And so that pipeline piece, I think, is really critical and a hallmark of the programs that we run.
I want to add to that. I'll stand up so you guys can see. I'm Angela Hawley, and I'm director of an educational talent search program at Marshall University. But I've been around a long time, so I have dabbled in many TRIO aspects. And to kind of answer with that, some unique things that happen in West Virginia is actually our EOC program works directly with some of the admissions offices of the community colleges. They are there when the community colleges are going out for recruitment to let them know that their program is there and available to assist them in that transition. Also with talent search, something that we do that's interesting is when we do campus tours, we don't just isolate to a 4-year campus. We also visit 2-year campuses. We actually have a program currently where we do a 3-day camp that partners with the community college so that the students can see that. And I think one of the attractiveness to community college environment right now, in particular in West Virginia, due to many factors, is the affordability issue. And the fact that those students, adults, I know for my husband in particular, affordability was an issue. And also the 2+2 programs are phenomenal opportunities. So I think you'll find that TRIO in general and EOC in particular, that's a very viable and strong partnership.
And just to add, for adult learners, I think, you ask folks when they're little, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, I'm grown up now. And so some of the things happen with some of the adult learners. We actually give career assessments. If some of them actually come to us, especially at the adult ed centers, I don't know what I want to go to school for. And for example, Christy, who I mentioned, all she wanted to do was get her GED, and that was it. And then when I kind of explained the process to her, she still was kind of undecided. So we gave her an ACT profile, which is an assessment you can do online. It's free. And it actually just gives you career clusters of your interests, your values, your abilities. And just kind of gave her a sense, well, maybe I need to do something in administrative or something in the business area, and just even giving adult learners that idea, because they may not have even had that opportunity when they were in school, or most of them dropped out, to say, you have interest in these particular areas. And I tell even the adult learners when they come to me, I say, look, when you drive in your car, just look around. There's somebody up on a light pole. There's somebody underneath the ground working. Those individuals have skills. They had to go get some type of credential, some type of certification, and they have a job. So there are opportunities out there. We just got to find out what you want to do and how your skills match up to that.
I think that particular piece is so particularly critical. If you all think back to the institutions of higher ed where you had an opportunity to attend, I'm quite a bit older than most of you, and so I can remember we didn't have an adult recruiter in our Office of Admissions or an adult learner unit or anybody who dealt with students who were returning to the workforce. It only became kind of nouveau to do that when the aerospace manufacturing industry in our community went downhill, and then people who were making those really good jobs decided they needed to come back for further education. So the folks that are on the ground that are doing that oftentimes are not on your college campus as a part of your community, on your university campus. They're the folks out in the community doing the EOC work. And so one of the things that's really critical, not just on behalf of the institutions that where we serve, but our communities, is making sure that there's somebody that's going to be dedicated to do that work without regard for whether it's cool or there's a downturn in your particular neighborhood or an industry that feeds your particular community. Are there any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, years ago, I remember in high schools they used to give the ASVAB as a general for population. Yes. Is TRIO able to use a tool like that since it's already been developed, or a similar tool? You had mentioned the ACT, but the ASVAB was really one that gave you those clusters and with specific ideas. And I know as a student when I was growing up, I was like, oh, I could do that. I didn't even think of that. And I think that would open up the realm of what students are looking at.
Absolutely. The question relates to assessments and what type of assessments are available, particularly the ASVAB. I know particularly at two-year colleges and two-year universities or colleges, the ASVAB is between that and the AccuPlacer are absolute first week orientation types of activities. At four-year institutions, it's not necessarily used as much, but I do know that most of the pre-college programs utilize some sort of career assessment. And frankly, a kid who's been in Upward Bound or a talent search program for multiple years will have taken it 3 or 4 times. So the first time you were going to be a basketball pro, and then the next time perhaps a bus driver, and then ultimately we get you to aerospace engineering, yay. And we graduate with something in the middle there. So there's a lot of work that happens prior to enrollment on placement and career exploration.
And then also the adult ed centers who do work keys, which a lot of employers are looking for to have skill sets through work keys. So that's another assessment that can kind of help direct people into some particular career paths to go into. So that's another assessment that I believe all adult ed centers that are students that are working on their GED, they have to take the work keys. That's part of their curriculum.
Any additional questions? Yes, ma'am.
For the panelists, what is something that I know a lot of people in here are representing their congressman or senator? What is something tangible that you would like, our members to consider that we could be doing?
Funding. Just help us out. We need the money. As I said, I'm a living example. I breathe, eat, TRIO, EOC every day. And so I think supporting programs like ours, a lot of times somebody else is already doing it. I think we have a history that shows in the numbers of students we serve, but also the success stories of our students. And so when it comes where our bills are coming across the board with TRIO programs, we work. It's been proven in what we do. We assist first-generation students, low-income students, students with disabilities, students that are interested in going to graduate school and want to get their PhD. What umbrella could cover all those cases? We even work with students all the way in middle school, all the way up to high school, and currently in college. So we're covering the bases. And one of the things I thought about was when someone was talking, if you thought about your mom or your dad, if they came to someone like me and said, I want to go back to school, and maybe your parents did go to school, but just imagine if your mom or dad did not have an education and their children are going to college before they do. It's a real scary thing. My kids are in school, but I can't even get my high school diploma or my GED. And I think we are the bridge. We are outreaching, and we're touching those people that get overlooked so many times. And we see that we expose people to opportunities they never thought they would be exposed through, just by someone saying, you can go to college. If you follow me and you're taking the advice and direction that I'm giving to you, you can be in college, or you can get your certification, or you can get some type of training so that you can make not only a better life for yourself, but for your family. So we work.
Can I add to that? I would say, in addition to that, I would suggest that we give our leaders some credit. Because the Congress of the 1960s, I think it was a brilliant act. The Educational Opportunity Centers, I think it was brilliant, and I think the Congress should give themselves some credit and continue to support what they brilliantly put together in the 50 years ago.
I would say invite your representative or your senator to visit a TRIO program. Because in as much as we can share the stories and as best we can bring alumni, she has $240 per student, so we can't bring them to you. That's just not financially feasible to do. But getting your folks out when you're back in district, when you are on recess, stop by a college campus or university. Just pop in at any given time. Now know that there are going to be some kids laying on the floor and there's Cheeto dust on the table, but act like you're at your auntie's house and be okay with that. I think engaging and getting to know the programs that are working in your community. The other thing that Darryl and I, we were in the elevator today, and I'd come out of the washroom, and there were a group of 3 lovely young women who were on their way to make their first congressional visits. They might have been, if you add them all up, an average 15 and a half, maybe 16 years old, long, beautiful hair, and they were washing their hands, and they'd been in a senator's office and inadvertently called him a representative, and so they were chastising one another about that. And the woman who met them when they exited the room, she said, TRIO, what is it? And I explained that to her, and she introduced herself as an instructor at Sidwell. And that part of the summer curriculum for the students that she works with at that particular institution have an opportunity to visit their state senator. And I walked out of the bathroom, and I looked at Darryl and said, I'm working with kids who will never have an opportunity, at least as high school students, to meet their senator. Yet my task is to make sure that they can perform on equal footing with those young women at the sink. I get a little emotional because I'm thinking about my babies back at home, and I'm like, how do I get them that type of confidence, that type of capital, where they can walk in this building and walk up and down the hallways and giggle and laugh and feel quite comfortable in their own skin, because this is their inherent right. My children that live in Wichita, Kansas, don't have an inherent right, or at least they don't know that they do. The young people, the parents, the citizens that our EOC programs serve don't know that they can walk in your office and schedule an appointment and say, hey, I'd like to talk to you about X. How cool is it that those young women at 16, she was like, well, they didn't even notice that I said the wrong thing because everything else I said was brilliant. And I thought, absolutely it was. Right? How awesome is that? And so as you go back and you talk to the folks that you work with, your legislators, invite them to visit, encourage them to visit. I know that it will change your life when you get an opportunity to see the young people, the veterans, the disabled students, and the returning adult students that are served by these programs. The President's budget currently zeroes out the Educational Opportunity Center. When you talk about workplace development and creating opportunities in your particular communities for your citizenry to thrive, think about those populations who aren't inherently attending the post-secondary institutions in your community, and protect them. That's what we want you to do. We want you to protect them. Okay. Amen?
I just want to add 3. I had 4 things, but now I have 3 because you covered one of them. I hope that you all understand. I started my talks today with 2 stories that were intended to exemplify this. It's important to get out of your head, or in the case of your bosses, the idea of the sort of the stereotypical high school dropout. The reason I told those stories is, there's a reason why people drop out of school. It's often because they got to go to work, they got to take care of family, that something else has happened. I can't tell you that sort of idea that's just out of sheer laziness or whatever, people drop out of school. It's just, I just don't see it. It doesn't happen. That's the first thing. Second thing is, as I mentioned earlier, adult education is moving much more into the sort of workforce development, economic development area. I think 20, 25 years ago, you have talked about adult literacy and adult education as being sort of nice things, but sort of separate from that. But you really, especially with WIOA, you really can't talk about workforce development, economic development without thinking about adult education as a partner. That's really, really important. And then I do have to echo the issue about funding. You know, Kaye mentioned that the idea that EOC would be zeroed out of anybody's budget is just so ridiculous to me when you think about the return on investment. And adult education, I mentioned before, we're only serving 1.7 million with about $600 million. It's a ridiculously trifling amount of money when you think about what we could be doing. But also, the other thing about today is how all these things work together. So what drives me a little bit crazy about federal education spending is that we cut a little bit there, we zero something out here, and it's not just education, it's workforce programs of the Labor Department as well. Well, guess what? These programs all work together. You've heard that today. So what happens to adult ed programs if we zero out EOCs? They're not going to get the referrals anymore. So I think that's the other really important message, is to understand, to see all this stuff, sort of a continuum of funding that gets a really good return on investment, but you got to keep the big picture in mind, and frankly, it all needs to be funded adequately. So those are my 3 takeaways.
We're done. Thank you guys for coming. We appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you in our districts, or in your districts. And if there are questions and you guys want to talk to the panelists personally, feel free to do so. Thanks again.